All right. Well, looks like we are live here. So welcome as people start to come in. Today we've got Tom from Convesio. So I'm Todd from OpenMetal, and Tom and I have known each other for it feels like a long, long time. We've been in the same industry for so long, and we were lucky enough here at OpenMetal to have Convesio as a customer, and we've gotten to learn a lot of things together and definitely in the AI space, I always say to everybody, people don't really know what it's for or how to use it yet, but we're hoping to share a bit about what we know about AI and how it can apply to WordPress agencies. And Tom with Convesio, who is Convesio is a really a brilliant WordPress company that spans all kinds of different parts of their customers troubles and challenges and need to get into new things like AI. And so we're excited to have Tom on here today to kind of guide us through some of the things that he's seeing that WordPress agencies may find really useful. So yeah, Tom, if you don't mind, intro yourself real quickly and maybe talk a little bit about what got you into Convesio and working on this WordPress stuff.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it. And likewise, super excited to be here. Convesio started, gosh, I think we officially formed in 2019 and went to market in 2020 as a WordPress hosting platform. And our superpower was scaling. And so we gravitated towards what I would describe as the mid-market to enterprise mission critical sites. These are typically commerce enabled sites, membership, coaches, big publishers. And since then, we've sort of evolved and we've really gone and focused on this commerce vertical, right? And now we have a payments platform and we've got an engagement marketing platform that does cross sell, upsell, abandoned cart, website personalization. And our mission has really been to service agencies and these end customers via agencies through, our platform and our technology. And, as a sidebar on this, I've been in this space a long time. I was thinking as you were talking, one of the things that I loved, I think I built my first website sometime around 1994, 95 probably. And, back then, nobody had done anything. So everything you had to figure out. There was no playbook on like, this is how you build this type of website, right? And it kind of, this revolution in AI feels like those good old days, right? When it's like
Mm-hmm.
the future is uncharted. And that is a really awesome place to be. And for those who are curious and they're innovators, there is so much to do right now in terms of putting your mental capacity towards figuring out solutions and how they apply to, in our space, agencies and commerce. It's just a really, really exciting time. So I love that. I love that sort of the place that we're at where this is so new, but it feels so powerful and capable.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. Like I was saying before, I know we don't know all the things about this or what it's going to be used for, but to share a little bit of my background and why this is part of my passion. So first, on the open metal side, we're an open source focused infrastructure company. So we basically taken what would classically be a very difficult to run private cloud hardware automation system and turned it in to something that companies, generally on a little bit of the larger side, would be able to own their own and run their own private cloud. And it's a fixed cost system. Companies find themselves in the situation where they need this when they have reached a certain tipping point, either in the public cloud or they're trying to get out of the complexity of co-location or their own data centers. But where it crosses over with AI, so just a little background so you the group can see what we're going to share. So my background in AI is both from the infrastructure side. So we provide GPUs and CPU based inference using open source models and open source kits. So for example, Llama 3.2 or the latest, the next one up, would be running on a GPU or a CPU here at OpenMetal, and customers are calling through an OpenAI compatible API to then reach those LLMs. So that's some of the familiarity that I bring to the table. But I also work on the InMotion side. So this is another business that I'm involved with. We utilize it for several things. One of them is for actually running a WordPress builder system. And so this is an AI driven create your blocks, but AI driven create your content also. And that's inside of one of our builder systems on the InMotion side. And so, and then also being engaged in helping customers start to either use our stuff directly from an infrastructure standpoint, or just talking about what on earth should this product for us be in the future, or how can we help customers do this. And I know, Tom, I've seen literally some of the stuff work that he's helping his customers with in that same vein, is bringing it actually to a useful spot. So customers can now, whether it's a chatbot running on their site, or it's systems used to ingest content or logs or information about performance, to be able to then tell the end user, hey, this is what you need to do, or here's some guidance. So that's the background. So hopefully we'll get some questions throughout here. But yeah, Tom, I don't know if you want to lead us out, maybe talking a little bit about what you've seen now for agencies, and maybe we could talk about how designers might be using it,
Yeah.
developers using it, whole site managers might be using it. But yeah, if you don't mind, take us out, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So the way I think about the opportunity for agencies, and I want to go beyond this idea, there's a million AI tools that are out there. The challenge with that inherently is all your competitors are going to be using those same AI tools. So how do we really take it up a notch, right? So this is where I think the real innovation and differentiation is for agencies. And you don't need to code your own AI application for this. There's all of these tools out there now that are open source. We'll talk about some of them, but at a really high level, if you're an agency and you're thinking about how can I implement AI in my business, I think you need to think about this in terms of a few different buckets, right? So one, you can have things, you can look at your internal processes that your team has. So this is things, just to throw out some ideas, like how do you deal with errors on sites for your clients, right? How do you handle support tickets for your clients? One of the big use cases we have is we do a lot of support with clients. And what I've found, we support our clients directly in Slack. I've found you can copy and paste like an entire Slack thread into ChatGPT, and poof, you have a really awesome knowledge base article for other people who are going to, deal with this in the future. So things like that, there are processes that you can really accelerate your business management by leveraging AI. But then even more, it's like you can start getting into creating custom workflows. So we have this new thing we're working on right now. We've built it's a simple script. It basically just monitors a WordPress site for errors in the WordPress error log, runs, when it detects an error, it does a post into our Flowise automation system, and then Flowise stitches together LLMs. And we use a tool like, most people are familiar with Zapier, but N8N, we'll drop the link in there, is an open source version of Zapier. So we basically have this chain where we can say, you detected an error, send it to AI and analyze it, then post it to ClickUp as a ticket, or send it to your help desk as a ticket. And so now all of a sudden, and this is feedback that we got from one of our clients. I'll give a shout out to Valet. They're an awesome WordPress agency. They're like, AI for AI's sake is not really that great, but like, if we can actually have it tee up for us and serve up to us what we need to be doing to continuously improve our clients' sites, that's valuable, because we have to have someone go look at a site to figure that out, go look at the logs and go interpret them. Well, this one workflow can automate that entire process. And it's not just AI, but it makes it so much better than just throwing a log into a task.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. All right. Yeah. To be honest, I'm now taking some notes here to have some of our support flow teams watch this, because it is interesting how everybody's mind works a little bit differently and sees how this can be used. I think for me, and I'll cross into the designer world, and then maybe we can follow up on that. Is you can definitely see there's going to be advantages to knowing how to use AI to help you actually create both the site and its layouts and its blocks, but also its content. And again, a lot of people end up, a lot of agencies end up supporting their customers in all different kinds of ways, right? It might be you're building a particular plugin for them. If you're on that side of the kind of developer business, you might be doing the graphic work, you might be doing the design system, you might be picking the color schemes, etc. But I definitely see this stuff already coming in. But I see that for, I think a lot of times when customers, very end customers are trying to do this themselves, they're going after and using these tools. Do you see a crossover where designers will gravitate towards systems that are AI assisted, I guess you could say, in creation? Or help me navigate that or understand that myself, if you've got some perspective to share there, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't call myself a designer, but being in the agency space, I'm really skilled, more of a technical skill of like, Photoshop and the tools that we'd use, Figma. And I've always found, and I think we'll throw a link to this. I just found uxpilot.ai, which I've always found the hardest part is the starting. Like when I have to look at a blank canvas, and I think this is why Canva is so popular. And I think the next evolution of this is Canva, it's like choose from a million templates, right, to help you get started. I think that whole thing is probably going to go away, and we're going to be like choose from a million prompts to get you to get you started. And
Great.
what I find as the harder thing that is, this is one of the areas I think is the least progressed, is product management and product design. It's like, yeah, I can create a great image, I can create good copy, but really AI tools are just scratching the very surface level of product management and product design. And I'm not talking about coding. I'm actually talking about a UI interface for an application, a roadmap creation, things like that. And UX Pilot is an interesting first pass at an app that's trying to do, this notion of you can put in a prompt for what you want for your app and it'll lay out your UX screens for you. And to me, it feels like in 5 minutes, I can have a starting point that I am able to go quickly on. That eliminated research and looking at competitors and all of this stuff that used to take a lot of high level sort of product management, intuition and thinking. It's like now we can get things going much faster. And I think that's probably the place we're going to see we can start and accelerate projects faster with these design tools that are out there for AI.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, no, I think maybe I've got something to add to that. It's a little bit different part of the space. So with our builder system on the IMH side, we also use this builder for our own sites. And one of the challenges we ran into was, hey, when we want to create new blocks, you want speed of delivery, you want the marketing department to be able to do this. So again, these are tools we use ourselves and have out there for hundreds of thousands of users. And this isn't released yet, but this is what we're trying to do. So I think this might be applicable to the design agency. Is we essentially, when we ask the AI to create us blocks, we're feeding it a suite of blocks, of course, that we have created already, because the AI needs this, this set of content to base itself more accurately from. So if you're using a general LLM, it doesn't matter, OpenAI or whatever's behind theirs versus Llama 3, 3.2 or whatever that we're using, is you're often having to supplement the request, the prompt, with the examples, right? So this is your context window. So you've got this big context window. And so what we've been trying to do, of course, is to send in a whole suite of the working blocks from our design system. And so what we're trying to do, and I think this will be applicable to the design agencies, is as, of course, you have this suite of designs to choose from, you naturally are based, you have your base, right? You have your kit, your WordPress kit, that when you launch this out, it has the plugins you like, it has your base theme that you like. Well, and I was thinking about that, eventually it should extend. So instead of those million prompts, which of course is going to happen, which is a bummer, but it's going to happen that way, but then you'll have your own suite of supplemented content that you get to send along with this to say, make me a new block for this, or get me started with this kind of block, with this kind of slider activity, etc. And but then, behind the scenes, that when you're making that request, you're sending along all the blocks that you put into your like approved system. Maybe there's 20 of them. And the LLM can then borrow from that and say, I'm going to use those when I create this block for you. So my guess is it's going to happen like that. I don't know. Yeah. If you have a thought on that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. When you said design, I think to myself, like proper designers working in Figma. What you just described, and I think this is a hot application, is implementation of the website. To me, when you're in the builder, you're outside the design phase and you're more in the implementing stage. And as a side, Matt Mullenweg just did a build off on against someone. Here's the thing that blew my mind. He's going into this and he's like, I work in WordPress, but I don't really build sites often. And he's like, they gave them this site. It was the first time they saw it. And they're like, and he's like, oh, I've got this AI prompt. And he literally screenshot a segment of the website, dropped it into AI, and it produced the Gutenberg pattern code for it. And he pasted that in and poof.
All right.
Took an
Nice.
image. It took an image that he screenshotted into ChatGPT, created a block for it, pasted the block text in, clicked recover block, and voila, it was perfect. It did text translation, images, everything.
Yes. This tech though is, I tell you, like, that's why I think we started the conversation with like, people don't know exactly what it's going to be used for and how quickly these things are coming, because they're building on top of other open source systems. So that scraper, I'm not sure which one, the one that's taking the visual and pulling it in, I'm sure that's going to be an open source system that is allowing that to happen. If not, there is a competitor to it.
This was just a Chat GPT, a custom GPT that someone wrote.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So it wasn't even a thing. It was just part of Chat GPT.
I tell you, being able to like pull all this stuff in, that's why I say it's so great to have like somebody like you who's watching this stuff carefully, and you having this background of actual applications that you're starting to do for your customers. Yeah, again, I think this is good stuff. I don't know if we want to shift or direction.
Yes, but I do want to. Arturo just put in the content here. I do want to encourage everyone. Thank you for sharing that, Arturo. Anybody who's got killer tools, drop them in chat, because I'm an app and tool junkie, and so is Todd, and we share links to stuff we find. So, like, if you guys have any tool suggestions for us to check out, and we have more that we're going to be dropping in here, but yeah, please take us to the next segment, Todd.
Okay, yeah, I think I don't know if we're ready to see, kind of ask the question of how you see this may play for e-commerce sites. I know this has been brewing in your mind. We've talked about it before. Are you kind of ready to share your thoughts with the group here?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think from e-commerce sites, and this is a challenge. The challenges of commerce-based sites is something we're in, and I'll just talk a little bit about the landscape of this, and I'm going to get in my soapbox for a moment. 15 years ago, starting an e-commerce site was so incredibly easy compared to how it is today. So, you have things like privacy and GDPR concerns. You've got accessibility in the US. Accessibility lawsuits are up 300% in like the last 3 years or something. It's astronomical. It's taking off. And I would say that's far behind where privacy law is. So if you look at like privacy laws on the forefront, accessibility law is coming up. E-com sites are the number one, target for ADA lawsuits at the moment. And you think about things like PCI and payment compliance and cybersecurity. These are all challenges that are happening outside of the actual business owner figuring out, how do I sell my product better and ship it and keep my customers happy, right? Which is what traditionally it's like you've got these internal to the business factors. Now you have all these external factors applying pressure to commerce-based sites. And I think that AI has the ability to impact all of these facets of running an e-commerce business. And so I think the challenge with a lot of the solutions that are on the marketplace is they all feel very one size fits all. It's like they do a very point solution thing. And I don't know if we know yet what is really going to move the needle for e-commerce. The chatbot thing has really been played out 10 ways, there. I'm just seeing right now personalization. In fact, Contentful, who's a big enterprise headless CMS, they just acquired a company that does website personalization. And now you can do all of this AI personalization. And that's, we have this marketing engagement tool, Convesio Convert, which has AI in it to help people write engaging sequences and emails. But we do personalization as well. And we're trying to figure out, like, how can we increase the conversion rate of e-commerce sites with AI optimized personalization that happens for users. And so the entire product discovery journey, post purchase, cross sell, upsell, using AI in that feels like it's and the reason why it feels so compelling is we have a lot of data. We know a lot about the people and their shopping behaviors and what they're doing, and analyzing that, the propensity of someone that purchases product A, like what's the second product that they're purchasing? How long does it take? And to write a prompt that just says, analyze this cohort of customers and automatically write for me and send at the appropriate time the most likely product for them to purchase at the most likely time. When you can analyze that purchase behavior in your e-commerce data, then you can unlock some really powerful insights that I think are traditionally difficult to get to.
Whoosh, yeah, that is the dream. What you just described there is for the data feed to be coming in, for it to be able to
Yeah.
determine, like, hey, look, like a person, us on this side being able to watch that. In theory, yes, we could do that. The power of this is, of course, practically there's no time, right, for an individual running a store, right, to do that,
Right.
but they need these tools. Man, I just think about this and go, like, we need something in the open source world. We need champions like yourself pushing this stuff, because you can bet the Amazons of the world, right? They
Oh
have
yeah.
that, of course, right? That's there. So how do we, as an aggregate WordPress community, make sure that some of this bubbles up and becomes practical to use tools? Because some of this is hard, right? Like, realistically, you know how that gets put together, but it's going to be hard, I think, for people actually running these sites, companies running these sites, to leverage that technology. Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah. Do you
I
see,
have
what do
an
you thought?
answer for this.
Yeah.
And that to me, the way we like to tackle these problems, because I'm a product guy, right? And I want to give a quick shout out, by the way. I just wrote a foreword to a book, and it's called Amazon's Dirty Little Secrets 2 AI Revolution by Greg Jameson. And he's been in the AI space. He feels like one of the first pioneers, practically. And he wrote this book about how Amazon is doing all the things they use AI for in their business. And it's interesting to me because as I was sort of reading that book to write the foreword, I was like, a lot of this stuff can be done today with things like Flowwise and N8N and the open LLMs. And I'll just pivot this a little, which is, I think if you're a somewhat technical person, and this is what we're trying to do, is you're going to go and you're going to say, I can take Flowwise and I can set up my own LLM and I can host it on like OpenMetal, and I can basically safely put all of my customer purchase data in that LLM, and I can trigger sequences and workflows using these off the shelf tools. And that's how you prototype and test this stuff without building the Death Star, right? It's like we don't need to, we just need to find a hypothesis of like, man, if I can, do this, this, and this to the customer journey, I think I can influence this variable in the business. If you keep the scope limited, and this is kind of what we're doing today in Convesio, is we're trying to flow these out, use off the shelf tools to quickly prototype and validate this hypothesis, right? And then build it into the product, right? And that's where I think, from my perspective, this is super exciting, is that these tools, you don't need to be an engineer to build them. You can literally, using things like Flowwise, set up flows and connections and N8N, which most people know is like the commercial version of that's like Zapier. You can do this sort of WYSIWYG, no code, low code, and you can validate these. All you need is, again, that curious mind to look at your business and say, what can I improve? What processes can I make better? And what's my hypothesis on that impact that it'll have? And I think this is where, when we geek out, Todd, this is why I think, and where the departure from these LLMs that are like the Chat GPTs, Perplexities, at some point, you're going to want this to be part of your secret sauce, either in your agency or in your e-commerce. So for instance, if you're an agency, the opportunity to learn this technology and be able to deploy it for your clients. You don't need it. Now, are you going to do it for $500? No. Okay. But you could do what maybe cost Amazon 5 or 50 million. You could maybe implement something like that for 5 or 10,000 for a business. And now they've got a suite of tools, and they have an AI expert to help them, really take their business to the next level. And that's what this tool set represents for people who are inspired to try and build solutions on it.
No, I think, that's a great subject matter, is to be able to share with people, to say, look, the systems are there. And in some ways, so I'll share a little bit about kind of our side of the business, because I think it can help people understand how to look at this thing as not overwhelming. And a lot of times, so I'll give a very specific example. So in the last 6 months or so, we've added CPU inference as part of our upcoming release product. And the reason why we did this, to follow what you're talking about, Tom, is it's like, that's very low cost. People have access to that in their clouds that we have in other VMs out there in the world today. You don't have to go to a giant GPU in order to do inference on basic open source LLM. So that Llama 3.2s, the smaller models, run quite fast. Tokens per second is kind of the measurement, both on input and output. And so CPU inference, Intel's the one that I'm familiar with, but Intel, in response to NVIDIA's GPUs, added little tiny matrix math silicon to their CPUs. And the latest, the 4th and the 5th generation, which are commonly out there today, they have this. So at some point, I know our AI expert here, Raphael, on our side, will post out here, we'll get it up on our site, as here is how fast it can be done on a CPU. Here's how fast it can be done on a GPU. And then it lets people go like, but I actually have that already. I don't have to go get this GPU. I can start my development work. I can start my understanding of how these systems will work on this low cost stuff, because you don't need massive throughput on your development environments. You can actually just get started with this stuff. Yeah. So that line of thought is great, Thomas. It's like, where can agencies think about this and go, you know what? I'm going to have an AI department that helps me implement these systems. Maybe it's WordPress specific. I know a lot of times when we talk about this, it's not going to be WordPress specific, right? It's going to be solving your customer's problem, and it may be just bolted onto WordPress, right? So this is more in that kind of the agency, or almost the managed service provider, being able to help your customer. Yeah, so I'm excited about that stuff. And what we see on our side is sometimes people will build against OpenAI, but the open source systems, the API kits that come with them, and there's a set of them, are compatible. For better or worse, this is now the S3. S3 used to be, that was Amazon's object storage. That's everywhere. People just call it S3, but everybody does
Right.
it. We call ours S3
Right.
compatible. The same thing as you're going to be OpenAI compatible. Yeah, so I think that's a great line of thought to just say it is more and more accessible every day. And if you start learning it now, I do feel like this is the tipping point. Like for me, those systems matured enough where N8N is great about publishing, hey, here's this self-starter kit. And it helps us go from zero to already building something so quickly. It feels like the tipping point is here, is that it is now the time to start getting in there and understanding what this product is going to be for you as an agency. How do you monetize this now? Because the expertise is not all out there. It's a great time to get in there and turn it into a long-standing product or service for yourselves.
Well, and I think too, like, if you look at, I mean, I tell my kids that I'm like, you gotta learn AI, I feel like I'm like, repeating what my dad told me, because when I was young, he's like, you got to get into computers, and it's one of these things where every large enterprise that I've been part of, they all have like Salesforce admins and all these roles to administer these platforms that they have. I think we're going to start to see AI technicians infuse themselves in businesses. And I think small, my family's in the insurance business, and my wife's family, and it's like seeing the process of, they do the same thing, writing these policies over and over again. It's like I could see where like a fractional AI officer would come into a small business like that and implement a AI system. So I think there's going to be a whole AI workforce. It's like, yes, there's the easy button, but when you get beyond that, it's like there's going to be customizations and things people want to do. And we still don't know this whole where we're going with privacy. There's a lot of concern around privacy. And if you're going to pump all of your information into, is that something you want to help host yourself, or is it something you want to share with so there's a lot of caveats to this, but I think there's going to be a whole workforce of AI jobs that come online that help in various size businesses implement, deploy, optimize, all of these systems that are going to talk together.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. Like even, so the underpinnings, like, okay, what is a RAG? What is a context window? How do you make sure you're not overwhelming the system? Like the big providers like to say, well, you have an unlimited context window now. Well, guess what? You pay for that. So you don't want to use that. That's not a good idea. Like you have to understand how your system works and what data you're going to be sending into the LLM. And like you said, that there's definitely a crossover spot. We always think in tipping points on the OpenMetal side is when you say like, look, I have to move into a private system. And then in the private system, you know exactly where that information is. And you're
Right.
not fearful of loading this stuff up for, you hate to say it, for whoever your provider is to train on your stuff to then turn around and resell your expertise, your knowledge out to the rest of their users. And in some cases, you're going to find this one. I'm going to digress a little bit into some of my own personal stuff here, but it's a philosophy that I would like to share. Not everybody will necessarily agree with it, but to me, I very strongly believe that there should be a pure open source version of an AI system. Now, you may use it as an individual, and it's meant to just leverage you and to broaden what you can produce, or it could be that it is part of a system that is meant to like be leveraged up by a company. But I also very strongly believe that there should be individual management of an AI, let's call it your AI digital twin, that it should be owned by you, which means it's going to have to be an open source system that is out there that can be run on any kind of general systems, whether it's your laptop, it's your phone, it's a simple VM, it's a simple container or something like that. But part of the reasons where I see that this can come in and all of these systems start to work together, and it's back to that tipping point, like this stuff is here, is that these systems are out there now. They're not all simply pulled together yet in a way that you can always just grab and run with them. But so you do need to still be a little bit technical. You're going to be firing up a system. You're going to probably even want to know a little bit of Python. you're going to need to get on a Linux command line to really be able to leverage some of the background, the underpinnings. But so for me though, is I look at this and I say it's now here. And what you said, Tom, is like there is going to become a technical expertise level that can be monetized by agencies. I think no question that this is going to happen. And that expertise will both be like what's coming new, but then how to keep it reasonable cost and align it with what the company needs. So being able to look at a data stream coming out of a busy shop and being able to say, this is really popular. The people that bought A 2 months later, 2 weeks later, bought B. Hey, I just saw somebody buy A. I should probably offer them B. 100% that's gonna happen, but it's not quite there yet. Like people have to bring those pieces together. So I think it's a perfect time now, agencies, to really get in. I like 2 years ago, or when the even like a little less than that, when the boom started, people didn't know what the heck was happening with it. Right. Yeah. So I would say now is a perfect time. So all right, I've kind of wandered a little bit there. What do we want to get into next?
I would also encourage people though, like I know you mentioned you're going to need to know Python and some of these things. This again is where like the code writing capabilities of AI, it's like you can, and by the way, I'll throw out another thing. I just have been playing with Windsurf, which is a new AI native IDE for developers. And I went ahead and I was like, I wanted to do a quick ROI calculator for my blog on like paid search or SEO. And I wrote one prompt and it produced a perfectly running like JavaScript calculator for me. And then I was like, add a chart to it. Boom. I mean, it was awesome. And I'm like, then I was like, make it a WordPress plugin, and flawlessly created a WordPress plugin for me for a calculator. And it even figured out that I needed a short code, and it put instructions in it to embed the short code. And so the coding capabilities of AI are just progressively getting really, really powerful. So don't let the fact that you're not a developer frighten you off from trying to do some of these things, is my little caveat. So, okay.
But it does help if you've got some of that skill. So if you're an agency with some of that skill and some of the people in your company going, it helps to not be afraid of it. And so familiarity with it, I think, is great to help you get into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Where do we want to go next?
Let's see. I'll send over, but just because I didn't very well articulate my view of this open system, I'll drop a link to a really super bad WordPress website that describes it. But then we'll make our shift here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for like the early alpha so I can try that.
It is there. It is there. It's just behind the scenes. I use this system for anybody who is visiting that site. It's not a great site, but it is a working system that I and one of the other developers use to. It is a digital twin. It takes a whole set of data that came from me or came from like my usage of Google Maps, and helps me schedule things, do things. But it's all pure open source. I don't know if it will become a thing, but it is helping me have experience with this stuff to understand how to help other people do it. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of follow and work on that myself.
I do. Speaking of personal projects that we're working on, I want to just talk a little bit about agents and Flowwise and that sort of chat.
Yeah, sounds good.
So this is another application which you can use. So most people, if you're not deep into AI, you think of things like ChatGPT, where it's like you give it a prompt, it produces output, right? So the next place to go is this notion of an agent. And an agent is basically something that can string together multiple prompts and utilize the output of the prior prompt to take action on the next prompt. So a really good example of this is we're doing a chatbot for someone in the education space right now. And they had a very specific data set for some scholarship stuff that's changed this year, but from the government in the US here, and basically wanted to be able to upload that data, which came in PDF form from the government, and then wanted to be able to fact check the results, stylize them in a way that would put them back and be able to take action if like the fact checker failed, what would we do? And so we basically use tools like Flowise and ChromaDB to build a system that allows them to index this custom content, then allows ChatGPT to create results or deliver up facts about it, about that topic using the custom content, then have it do fact checking and stylization. And so it's a very, I'll use the term sophisticated. This particular one's not sophisticated, but you can chain together a sophisticated workflow for agents. And that whole thing is now you've created this agent workflow, which goes very beyond one prompt. And so, one of the things I'll say to agencies is, I know a lot of agencies, and we've talked about this, Todd, are trying to figure out how can I use AI for content creation. And there's a lot of tools out there for this. Okay. So, but what I'm seeing is these tools sometimes aren't that great. They hallucinate, they don't fact check things properly. It's like, particularly if you're trying to write SEO content, they don't get the brand messaging on point that you need. And usually with these tools, there's like limited controls around telling it to talk about this or talk about that. And you can put like prompts in, but they're not very long. And it just sometimes falls short, right? Using something like Flowise with OpenAI, you could craft your own entire agent to write content per customer. And so you could upload content to say, base the results off of all of this information. And you have far more control than you do using these off the shelf platforms. And so I did want to put a little plug in there of how I think agents can really help the workflows of content production for agencies. But more complicated to implement, but way better quality of output at the end of the day than the off the shelf. And that's a way as an agency you can differentiate from your competitors and have a much better process, whether you're creating social content, SEO, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I would say, Tom, this is a really important subject right now in particular. And I would suggest maybe later when you guys get that kind of more formed is publish that out, like you said, because
Yeah.
one of the things you see now, this using it for content creation, a whole raft of companies got burned very recently. And Google had always made this statement about like duplicate content is always an issue. But then they also said, hey, writing with an AI assistant is perfectly fine. Well, partly is those systems like you're talking about are not good enough to introduce truly unique content, even if you're using an AI. There's nothing wrong with my view of it, right? There's nothing wrong with using a helper, right? Like I use autocomplete when I'm typing many things, right? Like just like anybody does. But if you post content that, even though it's been written by the AI, so it's not exactly duplicate by the forming of the sentences or the paragraph structure, if it does not introduce new concepts or subject matter, Google can analyze it with its own AI system and determine it's actually just regurgitated content from an AI and thus is duplicate. Yeah. And this is dangerous. And so what you're talking about, I think, is awesome, is like you need a pipeline. You need to introduce your brand, your tone, your specific subject matter. Like if you've got charts about like how your system works or what sells this, or if you've got comparison systems, you've got unique content. So for sure you want some of that unique content to be the written part. So I guess before maybe people who learn how to use the agent system properly, making sure that they are being one of the agents in there, is making the modifications to the content so it is not duplicate.
Well, and I will give you a tip of something we're doing. And this is why when I use ChatGPT, right, for things like KB articles and all that, my feeling is I get much more unique approaches to things because I'm seeding it, I'm feeding it all of this like content it's like they're seeing a real live conversation. So this is like repurposing and retooling original content that was created. And I think this is an opportunity for businesses, by the way. in everyone's business, you are likely creating a ton of content, emails, chats, phone calls, meetings, town halls, whatever it might be. If you get your mindset to start thinking about how can I repurpose that to something I can use for, marketing purposes, SEO, content creation, knowledge bases, help desk, standard operating procedures, all of that stuff can be repurposed using AI really, really quickly. And one of the things I'd say is, like, I'll give this everyone a little tip on this. We have a partner that we work with that has a treasure trove of podcasts that they've recorded. Okay. And
Mhm.
we basically went to them and said, you know what? Like, you have transcripts of this, but you've never really written any like how-to articles based on the insights that you've got on these interviews. And we can use AI to say, now craft an article based on this topic of this podcast and infuse these insights from this individual and quote the podcast. Now you've got seed content. And I think there's like a lot of opportunity in repurposing already created
Yes.
YouTube videos, like podcasts, recordings, all of that stuff. You can repurpose it to create fresh, organic social content, website content, guides, knowledge base articles, all of that. So
Yes.
there's really just a lot of ideas that can happen out there. But I agree, sitting down and telling AI, write a blog post on the 7 best practices for email. It's like, that's extremely generic.
Yes. Yeah. No, but I would say, and for agencies or people, agencies often find themselves advising customers on this type of stuff as well. I think the reality is you cannot use the easy way like you just described. You
Yeah.
can't. You have to, people are going to have to learn this more sophisticated way of doing it where you do find your treasure trove and you figure out how to get a pipeline to get that stuff turned into
Yeah.
what can be fed into the AI to say, AI, and you must use this AI. This is my unique content. This must have the preference over your, because, AI, those LLMs have all of the internet shoved into them. And so
Right.
you have to be very specific now about telling it, do not just use all that junk that's out there. You need to use my unique stuff. It's okay for you to help formulate it and get it into proper sentence structure and fire it out fast, but you must use my stuff. But I would also say today is so much better than it was 12 months ago. When you
Yeah.
tried to do that 12 months ago, it just wouldn't do it. You would say, stop writing like this junior college professor or whatever, and it wouldn't do it. It was so frustrating, right? But
Well,
now the
Todd,
tools are way better. Yeah.
in today's digital landscape, things are moving very quickly.
Right, right.
I mean, it's gotten so bad.
Terrible.
I'm getting
Always, yeah,
emails from people like, in today's whatever
yeah.
landscape. I'm like, ugh. I'm like,
Or
could you
these,
please send me a real email and don't AI it?
yeah, don't AI, and the structure is all the same. Where it's like that first line is bolded, and then there's like even paragraph and another bold and an even paragraph. And you're like, why am I reading this? Because why? And I would also say this too is when you're doing content creation, and the reason why I think a pipeline, like you said, and agents. I'm a huge agents fan as well. If you have truly valuable content, you're going to take some time to create it. Now, it may be that you're, as an agency, you're having to figure out a pipeline for a group, your company, a set of content writers inside of your company or a set of whatever content creations. You're going to have to put that time in it so that you make the overall pipeline faster. But like if you're writing something that's really going to help out, you're hoping to get 1,000 visitors coming in for that. And 1,000 of them are going to scan it. We know people don't read until they decide. And then you're going to get 50 or 100 people a month to really spend time reading your article, you're probably going to have to put a bit of time into making that
Yes.
article, right?
Yeah.
Realistically, you want good traffic. Good traffic means good content. I would still say, yeah, I know we can move on from this subject, but that's a great subject right there, Tom. Is like there is a treasure trove. Every company's got a treasure trove. Either you wrote it behind the scenes. It's in your Slack. Like you started one of the
Right.
conversations today about like there's a lot in Slack nowadays, and being able to pull that out and turn that into something that becomes front facing. Think of it, yeah, in that agent world. I mean, you could even have it do that today. It could go in and pull that and extract it. That's probably a bit dangerous. This is where we go back to like maybe the agencies are bringing this AI skill set to the table to know you could do that, but here's how you're going to have to sanitize it when it comes over so that that pipeline could move smoothly and safely and publish. But yeah, so I think, yeah, we covered some SEO stuff. We gave some warnings. Don't spit out general content because boy, that's scary. And a lot of companies got hurt when they went down that path. Well, yeah, we talked a lot about the tools that were out there. What about you guys? Maybe here's a great question is you gave us some tips, Tom, on some of the things you're doing in your own company. Yeah. What other things maybe do you want to share as like here as a company, here's how we're implementing it and maybe ways people can leverage that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for sure. So we are there, our Convesio Convert product, which is akin to like a, Klaviyo type of e-commerce engagement product. This has an integration with OpenAI for helping people and assisting the writing of sequences and content for pop-ups on your site and all that kind of stuff. So we've got that productized there. We're also very heavily looking into, and I mentioned this, analyzing log data at the infrastructure level to help people's sites perform better. We deal a lot with people doing big sales during like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all of that. And so we're very keen on analyzing what's happening during these peak performance periods. And what we've found is AI is really awesome for digesting tons of this data and summarizing it and pulling insights out of it. So what would take a person, a smart person, an hour to review, we're able to do this at a much more accelerated speed. Just going through, and if someone's like, hey, can you do a once over on my site, analyzing things like logs, traffic data, plugins that they're using. I mean, I've gone so far as like, I'm a big fan of like clicking and dragging a bunch of raw data. Like I'll go to the WordPress plugins screen because sometimes I'll get a new site that comes to us and they'll have like 100 plugins installed, right? And I'll literally click and drag on the plugin screen and copy all the text. And I will paste it into ChatGPT and I'll be like, which plugins are duplicative of one another? And it'll be like, these 3 plugins do the same thing. Like these 2 plugins, like, and we'll come back and be like, suggest things people can do. I mean, that process would have taken someone who knows what they're doing and knows a lot about plugins an hour to do. And I could do it in 5 minutes, So those are ways like from a process and not just product, but process way that we're using ChatGPT to do things that you might have to spend a lot of money with we do these things as part of our support, So it's like when you work with Convesio's support, like we'll leverage this. One of the guys on our team, Fayaz, I mean, I think he probably spends more time in ChatGPT, and we use it to write code for custom workers for Cloudflare, and we use it to write custom caching rules and bash scripts and all sorts of things that just in a day-to-day basis, technical people, ChatGPT can help tremendously. And so, these are all things we're doing both on the product side, the infrastructure side, and the day-to-day technician side.
Nice. I'm gonna have to figure out how to turn that from ChatGPT to one of the private LLM systems for you, because the private LLMs are really sophisticated now. Like I'm not a Facebook person myself, but boy, thank you to Meta really leading the way with Llama. And I mean, I think that part of their purpose is they need to make sure these other AI based companies do not get so far out in front. They have got to get something out there to help the whole world kind of temper where those other guys could go. Yeah, no, there's is it Mistral now, the ones that are top jumping out of my head, but one of the things that I can say is these private systems do now let you trivially switch back and forth on the back end between the models, and even the models that there's models are implemented in both like the small version, billions of tokens, billions, versus like the 70 billion requires a huge GPU to run, where there's much smaller ones, 1 billion, for example, that can actually run on phones in a relatively fast fashion. or run on CPUs in a very, very fast fashion. So yeah, I would say, yeah. So Tom, maybe I need to get you the equivalent chat window so we
Yes.
could get you guys switched over to that and start experiencing how that'll answer the questions. And it's really strong too. Again, thank you to Meta. It's not something I ever thought I would say. I'm just, again, I'm just not a Facebook fan, but
Right.
Meta, and thank you, to them and their open source kind of push. We've got a whole lot of JavaScript that we, came out of that same company. So, all right, I know we're winding down here. Any last things tips that you might want to share there, Tom?
I think we covered a ton of stuff. Yeah, nothing that jumps out at me. There's a lot out there. I would just encourage people to really dive into this and be thinking and pondering ways that you can leverage this in your business to move the needle. And that's what we're doing, and that's what I'm trying to encourage agencies to do.
Yeah, no, and for me at least, I kind of look at it as I feel like that there is going to be expertise that gets centralized, and it's going to be almost like a job function, and that agencies can provide this. Who knows where it's going to go for your customers, right? But I do know you do need to interact and run these systems several times, many times, to get good at them. And as an agency, you're going to have a chance to work with customers that do have different challenges, and it's going to force your team to implement different things, learn these things, and then it can become a service or a product for you. To me, that like is an absolute that's going to happen. And so part of it is just saying like, look, I'm going to accept this thing, I'm going to get good at it. Guess what?
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it as a service
Yes.
or a product, because
Oh,
I'm an
by the way,
agency. I help customers, right? That's what I do. Yeah.
Eddie just made a message about, using it to analyze PDFs. I'll give you 2 quick tips that I just thought of. Okay. Well, I didn't just think of them. I used them. I just remembered that. So one,
Yeah.
I love it for comparing contracts. I'll upload a contract I get from a vendor in PDF form, and I'll be like, work in the best interest of Convesio. What do you think here is potentially risky? What's changed from the last version? So it's my, virtual lawyer, if you will, which helps get me through a few red lines before I need to send it to the attorney. And then the other thing that's great is for those of you who are not financially minded, and I know a lot of people in the agency world tend to be creative, you can take your QuickBooks budget or P&L for the year and like upload it to ChatGPT and basically be like, give me my financial performance indicators. And it will spit back to you like a whole narrative executive summary of your business. And so it's been great. Like I love these use cases where you can give it data and it actually can act as a professional in a capacity and give you contextual information that might be easier for you to digest. So,
Heck yeah. Great.
those are,
I now see, Tom, how your brain is always shifting so often. Is like, boom, I just got my contracts red line. Boom, I'm done.
yeah.
I'm off here. Let me check the
Well,
KPIs
it's
for
like,
my
I mean,
performance
like I have
this
to
year.
do investor updates and I'll be like, I'll update like a town hall or something and or a town hall or a quarterly review and be like, give me like the talking points on this and, summarize what we've been doing. And it's like, it's a great start, for creating all sorts of documents like that.
Well, and I would say again, it's brilliant. I know that you're using that for customers as part of your hosting service, but like you can see for those of you who are out there maybe new to Tom and Convesio, you've got someone who loves doing this stuff, uses it themselves, and is helping customers do it. So I know we've got to drop,
Yeah.
but yeah, Tom, thank you for taking so much time, and you gave me some tips and tricks.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd. I
Thanks a
appreciate
lot.
it.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everybody for stopping by. I see the chats over on the side there. Really appreciate you guys' attention and riding along with us. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, bye guys.